What's up guys, James here, how you doing? So this is going to be a response to one of Zombie Picture Show's videos. Absolutely fantastic YouTuber, and if you're one of my few subscribers who aren't already subscribed to him, I really strongly recommend you check his channel out. Anyway, in a few of his last videos he was briefly talking about eugenics, and like me, he likes to tackle big issues with the rational rather than the emotional side of his mind. Recently, though, I have been thinking that perhaps this may be where the atheist community as a whole is failing. Most people just don't function in this way, and perhaps our videos simply need to speak to the emotional side of theist mind more often, if we're to ever really get through to them. But anyway, that would be a topic for another video, and in this video I am going to be talking, hopefully rationally and scientifically. So I did a video about eugenics a while ago, and of course I'll leave a link down to the video below, but I barely had 50 subscribers at the time, so I'm going to give it another go, hopefully start a bit of conversation this time, and get people speaking, and I will be repeating some of the things I said in the previous video, but I have also refined my point of view a little bit more since then. So, at its core, eugenics is simply the concept of improving human genetics, and if done correctly, this is far from a bad thing. Unfortunately, but understandably, people seem to be 100% absolutely against any form of eugenics simply because of the atrocities committed by the Nazis in the 1940s. Of course, though, the Nazis did a lot of things wrong, which are 100 miles away from anything that I'd endorse. For a start, it was based on race-based propaganda and fear. They had absolutely no idea what they were doing. Even the structure of DNA wasn't to be discovered till about 10 years later. They also thought things such as feeble-mindedness and music ability were due to some very, very simple genetics. They failed to recognise the importance of genetic diversity, and of course, most importantly, it took away human rights. So, my stance. First off, clearly I'm very much against endorsing any particular type of person, or discouraging any particular type of people from reproducing. I'm against forced sterilisation or any other measure which would infringe upon human rights. What I do very much advocate for, however, is that when the technology is affordable, giving absolutely every human being on the planet, for free, the option to screen their sperm and eggs and select the ones with the fewest or least severe genetic disorders. So yeah, of course, please correct me if you think I'm wrong. You can argue from a scientific, ethical, or political viewpoint. But if you are against the idea, please watch the entire video before commenting. Now, when selective pressures are removed from any given for any given biological function, a population will eventually lose this ability, and there are plenty of examples of this in nature already, such as cavefish, which have gone blind in as little as 10,000 years, naive animals, which, due to not having any predators for quite a long period of time, have completely lost their fear reflex, and in humans we've lost the extra strong jaw muscle which other great apes have. We no longer produce vitamin C, and we've got a lot less muscle mass. Now, of course, you know, there are evolutionary reasons for the jaw muscle and things like that in humans. We wouldn't be able to speak how we do without it, but the fact remains that we've lost those things due to a lack of selective pressure, and modern medicine and other technology designed to keep us safe hasn't just taken away one selective pressure, it's taken away absolutely thousands which would have killed us even 100 years ago. So expecting us to stay genetically healthy whilst improving medicine and being fully against the idea of eugenics is like demanding an ever-increasing public services whilst at the same time reducing taxes. It's simply illogical and impossible. I could imagine that without taking measures to improve our genetics, most of us would be on 10 pills a day just to stay alive in even a few hundred years. Using this method, however, I could see us potentially eradicating nearly every single hereditary genetic disorder, just as vaccines have eradicated smallpox. Now, supposing you and your partner both had your genomes sequenced with some genetic counselling, and you were told that your baby would have high chances of developing breast cancer, type 2 diabetes, many different allergies, and blindness, and that if you were given the technology to select the right sperm and eggs, you could reduce all of these risks to near zero. I think it would be absolutely morally repugnant to refuse the right to this technology. In the case of autosomal recessive disorders, that's where an autosomal recessive disorder is a genetic disorder where you need two copies of a particular gene in order for it to be affected, and one parent carries one copy of each of these genes. If this technology was available, not only could you guarantee that your child isn't going to suffer from this particular problem, you could also guarantee that your grandchildren wouldn't suffer from that particular problem as well. And that goes for all of your grandchildren with just one simple procedure. Now, I fully agree with free healthcare for absolutely everybody, but watcherazazel did a video recently where he asked a question, and it's a question I think a lot of people are simply afraid to ask. And of course I'll link to his video down in the description box as well. The gist of it was basically asking, at what point do we decide that we shouldn't help people? Now, as much as most of us don't want to admit it, there's a point where politics has to put a price on human life. Whether it be 1 million, 10 million, or 100 million, it doesn't matter. There's a point when you have to say no, that human life isn't worth that much money. Because unfortunately we don't have an unlimited supply of money or resources, and I don't think we should spend £100 million keeping someone alive with a poor quality of life, when that money could be used to say housing the homeless and potentially saving dozens or hundreds of lives. As Zombie Picture Show pointed out in one of his videos, we should be looking at fixing problems, not just dealing with the symptoms. Pharmaceuticals, surgery and diet only deal with the symptoms. They do absolutely nothing to deal with the cause, which is often genetic. And if anything, at the moment, it's going to exacerbate the problem in the long run. I don't just think that this is important. I think that this is an absolute necessity, and I think that it would pay for itself many, many times over with increased productivity, decreasing people's reliance on modern medicine, reducing suffering, and reducing the amount of abortions. Finally then, I'd like to deal with a few of the questions which I got asked last time I made a video about this. So my first two questions come from Unworshipped Deity. He's a really cool guy, so I recommend that you check out his channel. Also, before I start the questions, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video that this video is sponsored by Sainsbury's Pear Cider. It's crap, but it gets you pissed and it's really cheap. At the start of this video I had this all the way up to the top and I've only got this much left now, so I better finish the video before I'm out of alcohol. Anyway, he says, very well explained video. All the times I've heard eugenics used, it's always been in some negative fashion. My question, how is it you would handle the prejudice? Let's say it's legal in a significant amount around the world. You'll have these better humans interacting with cultures and people who, for lack of a better word, are lesser humans. I think this may be grounds for prejudice to form. Perhaps Islamic nations would reject this notion of changing Allah's design or something to that effect. Now it's a good question, but I don't think it will be as much of an issue as you'd think. Firstly, I don't think it will be right to withhold this technology from the rest of the world just because a certain group of people may be against it, any more than I think we should stop using vaccines or giving blood transfusions. Also, I'm not advocating for the creation of any form of master race by promoting positive genes, only by removing the objectively harmful genes from the gene pool. So all we're going to see is a reduction in disabilities, not improvements to otherwise healthy people. So I don't think that this will be justification for any form of prejudice. Finally, we may even be pleasantly surprised by certain religious communities. Genetic counselling has been widely accepted by the Jewish community and some of the Islamic community as well. And using this technology, you'd reduce abortions and you'd reduce wrongful birth cases. Also, if you're only selecting for sperm rather than sperm and eggs, this is no different from normal reproduction, except for the fact that you've added a selection process in there. Regardless, it's still one sperm fertilizing one egg. So here's the next question. Do you think that the so-called race issue will be obsolete because we're on the verge of genetic modification? So IQ and whatever other races' so-called inherited skills will become void in the future. We'd be able to weed out these problems before a child is born. I don't know what this has got to do with your current video though. Now, I think this question would probably warrant an entire video by itself, which I may or may not do in the future. Now, science doesn't show any correlation between race and intelligence biologically, and the race realists have been utterly 100% pwned on this. However, BGI Cognitive Genomics is doing a huge study into genetics and intelligence at the moment, and I'm sure there'll be many more of this type of thing in the future. So this race realism thing scientifically will be completely and utterly destroyed in about 10 years, and it will be as dead as creationism is among real scientists. That being said though, there will probably always be people who will cherry pick and misconstrue data for their own bigoted agendas. As for genetic disorders which do show legitimate correlation with race, such as Tay-Sachs and sickle cell, they certainly could be completely eradicated within the space of just a few generations. Moving on now to Gilgamesh then. Just 1 second. I think you bring many figures of authority into the debate, such as human rights groups, geneticists and ethical commissions, but you do not mention the mother or father of the unborn. Shouldn't it be ultimately their decision? Now, at the moment, I agree with you, yes. In my last video, I said that in order for a gene to be decided was objectively bad, you'd have human rights groups, geneticists and ethical commissions all collaborating together and spending a long time researching an individual gene before deciding that yes, this gene is bad. Now the reason for this is because some genes may express badly in some people but express very well in other people, and disorders such as autism and dyslexia and certain things like that can actually be very, very positive in some ways, and it will be good to keep that genetic diversity. So people with dyslexia can quite often be extremely creative, and people with autism and Asperger's and other autistic spectrum disorders can sometimes be extremly good with maths and physics and other very narrow interests. Ultimately, though, yes, the parents should have the choice to decide whether or not they want to go through with it. However, once this technology is available to absolutely everybody for free, people who by choice decide that they don't want to go through with this at all when they're planning for a baby, I think I probably would look on them in the same way that I look upon people who don't vaccinate their children or give them access to pharmaceuticals. So yes, it should be their choice, but I think society would look down on them and think they're idiots for not going through with it potentially. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. As I said before, I would like to start a real discussion going on this, so if you do disagree with me for whatever reason, it would be very, very interesting if you could get your opinion out as well. I'm perfectly open to the possibility that I'm wrong on this. So if you like this video, favourite it, comment, rate, subscribe, send video responses, and I'll see you soon. Bye.